So, what is self-sabotage to you?
Self-sabotage can be a lot of things. Sometimes procrastination can be a form of self-sabotaging. Perfectionism can be a form of self-sabotaging
As well.
There's a lot of things that can be self-sabotaging, and are, for example, excuses not to do something, and excuses to stay in the same place, and not evolving, not growing, not moving. It's kind of a inertia kind of thing, but like related with the mind.
Do you think it's always conscious?
I think that it's it should not be conscious at all.
Okay, so you think it's the person is not aware that the person is doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the person is not aware because the moment that you realize that you are self-sabotaging, it's a step towards controlling that self-sabotage.
That's very interesting. Yeah, definitely. Being aware is a portal to start breaking a pattern.
Yep.
Yeah. And why do you think it's related to the mind?
Why I think it's related to the mind? Whoa, okay. Self-sabotage. I think that most action comes from the mind. Okay. So it should be related with the mind.
I'm asking
in
you
my
this.
Understanding. It's not. This is not a truth. This is just my thoughts about it.
Yes, but I want to go down that particular rabbit hole, because the interesting part for me to break this down is to get to the point to see if this is actually a psychosomatic dynamic. Both mind and body are acting in a way of self-sabotage.
Should be. We are talking about the connection between mind and body, so it should be. And anything that has a mind action has to have a body reaction.
A body counterpart, yes.
Yep.
Yes. So I was checking the definition of self-sabotage just to see how far I could go in exploring this. And it's to act in a way that compromises one's own success or well-being. So it's very broad, it's very vast, and it can affect both the physical part and the social part, the professional part. It can affect everything. So it gives us plenty of freedom to explore this. And for instance, there is a set of personality traits that fall in the category of type D personality. And people who are classified or can be classified into this type D personality are the ones who tend to have more inflammatory and autoimmune disease. And these people are also the ones who have traits who are more related to self-sabotage. And I mean here, like negative affect, negative self-talk, social isolation, poor self-esteem, anxiety, sadness, procrastination, seeing the world through a negative lens, worrying frequently, many aspects that can be related to self-sabotage. And don't take me wrong, I believe every personality type, every person can in a way engage in self-sabotage. But I was checking personality traits and this cluster seems to have like a predominance of characteristics that might lead to more self-sabotage than others. And the fact that these personality traits are both associated with both autoimmune disease and self-sabotage is of extreme interest to me.
You got me confused in the beginning. You said the type D personality. What is type D and what is the... so D is a part of something, and what is that whole? What is that something?
So there are several theories to understand personality. And one old theory is the type A and type B, but later researchers and scholars added the type C and type D. So type D are kind of the pessimistic, negative effect, socially isolated ones. These people tend to have more anxiety, more sadness, worrying more frequently about everything, and not seek help, have also things related to health like poor sleep, and these particular aspects that research has been recently demonstrating that they have more tendency to inflammatory and autoimmune disease.
Okay. So it's creating categories of what?
Of tendencies.
Of tendencies. Tendencies like tendency A, B, C, and D?
Yes.
Okay.
Like type A is more like the competitive, dominant personality type who wants to reach the top of the food chain in everything they do. Type B are more laid back, relaxed people that, take things in a very relaxed fashion. They don't worry about anything. Type C is the perfectionism. He's not really competitive, but he wants to do everything, very correctly and achieve very high results. He tends to worry a bit more and he's not so confident, but they put a lot of effort in what they do to achieve high results. The type D is the negative one, low self-esteem, all the things I mentioned before. And it's very interesting that this last category is the one that suffers more into the body, into the autoimmune disease formation.
Okay, it's more prone to having autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting.
Yeah, because when I was going into the world of autoimmune disease and see, as we can explore here, the mind-body relationship into all these things, that certain personality types and psychological tendencies are more associated. I find this mind-blowing,
I read somewhere, I don't remember if it was, if it had some Reich influence or not, that people that are more like develop fat on the belly, on the waistline, it's like they are creating shield to let people away from them, so people will not get close to them.
Okay.
And it's like the body is projecting something of the mind, creating barriers, for example.
I heard in the domain of Reich and other post-Reichian somatic therapists that shield is also to protect the person emotionally, to create a distance in which the person is under an armor that doesn't allow them to feel things.
Yeah, of course.
Or to show what they feel.
To show what they feel.
Yes. It's like they are under a layer and the feelings are so deep, buried deep inside that others cannot realize or understand what they are feeling.
Okay,
it's very
so
interesting.
It's a type of dissociation. Also?
Yes, it might be.
Yeah.
Then we lack a lot of bridges between scientific evidence and these older theories from the beginning of the 19th century or the 20th century. And it's kind of far-fetched to make relations in these things. I believe you are describing the masochistic character type, and these people are actually more prone for dissociation. They can do a lot of things, but for the sake of pleasing others, they are kind of in autopilot. They can tolerate a lot of effort, but if it's about their own progression, their own well-being, they won't do anything. They are stuck. It's like they don't have a compass for their own self-development. And so they have all these layers of protection. It's usually, or as it was initially thought by Reich and Alexander Lowen, it was related to being shamed and being burdened with responsibilities from a very young age. So these people are like doers and achievers, but not for themselves, for others. And they live in a numb, kind of, let's say, dissociated fashion. Yeah.
And maybe alexithymia as well.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So dissociation is emotional detachment, and alexithymia, it's like emotional blindness.
Yeah.
Someone that cannot recognize or express his own emotions. Just for the listeners to know what we are talking about.
Now I'm curious if this character type or if this body type is more associated with autoimmune disease. I don't know. I have no way of knowing. Probably there's no research, but I can take a look at it.
Maybe. I was when I read it, it was about like a body shaped like a pear. It was like to create a barrier, to create a distance, and it's both armor for the body, for physical distance, and also emotional distance as well. Because there's other types of because when we were younger, we would say, now we would be cancelled, but we would say that chubby people usually are happier and they are funnier, and they connect more with other people.
Okay.
Because they found other strategies to connect.
Yeah. Well, in the Reich perspective, you have different types of people with larger body volume. You have the oral type and you have the masochistic type. The masochistic has volume but is thicker and went through different trauma than the oral type. The oral type has volume but is kind of soft, you know. What's the word?
Hollow?
No, when you don't work out, your muscle is flaccid. Yeah, flaccid. That's the word I want. Flaccid. So they went through different type of trauma or emotional abuse, so they develop different body tonus. And the oral type speaks a lot and claims for a lot of attention and is funnier. There are different oral types, but this is the guy who is always talking, always entertaining others, you know, communicates a lot and tries to make a lot of connection by means of oral communication. The masochistic type is more about doing. It tries everything not to be shamed again, to please. So it might be more quiet even. And that layer of fat around the waist might not mean that the rest of the body has fat. You know, it's more around the more, let's say, sensitive part of the body. Not so much in the arms, not so much in the legs or the glutes, but belly, diaphragm area, this more central part. Yeah. Something I find interesting now that you are talking is that the masochistic type went through a lot of emotional abuse. The oral type is more about abandonment, but the masochistic is about being shamed or being burdened. And something that is common with type D personality is that these people had more emotional abuse in childhood trauma. I know that childhood trauma can cover a lot of things. They also had more neglect, but it's also interesting that people who had this kind of emotional dynamic in childhood will develop type D personality and then develop certain diseases related to the body and the immune system.
You can develop that a little bit more.
Yeah?
Yeah. Carry on.
Okay. Well, this is interesting to pick from the start. I mean, when I say start, I say childhood. You know that childhood trauma increases the likelihood of autoimmune disease in adult life from 70% to 100%. And studies cover a lot of things, from rheumatoid arthritis to hemolytic anemia to myasthenia gravis. There's a lot of autoimmune diseases that people will have much more in adult life compared to others that didn't have emotional trauma or emotional abuse in childhood?
Okay.
It's like it's dormant.
It's latent, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I read some articles. There was an article that was talking about the C-reactive protein. That it's in higher concentrations in people that have suffered child trauma.
Okay. Can it play a role in autoimmune disease and inflammatory disease?
It can. It's it's a response to acute and chronic inflammatory conditions.
Okay.
Can be, for example, bacterial, viral, or fungal infections, but also rheumatic and other type of inflammatory diseases.
Okay. So
it can exacerbate previous conditions.
Okay.
And this C-reactive protein, what it does, it binds to dead or dying cells to promote phagocytosis. To promote phagocytosis, it's like it marks a cell to be killed by white blood cells.
Does the cell have to be dead already, or can be still alive?
No, it can be still alive. And the problem is, if the concentration is too high, it can randomly and erroneously bind to cells that should not.
How does that sound like?
Like sabotaging, or maybe?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my point. So the child is exposed to some form of abuse. Might or not display some reactions then, but later in life will display very likely, like 70%, 100% more likelihood of having these types of inflammation and reactivity and health sabotage, in which this immune system attacks its own cells, the body's own cells. It's attacking itself. So something is happening all the way. The child is in distress while he's growing up to prove something or to avoid something, to protect against further trauma, or to be accepted, or to be nurtured, or to not be bullied. And all these dynamics are expressed through discomfort, or they mean discomfort. Discomfort means stress, and stress means the release of different hormones, and all of this, it creates alterations in the way the immune system and the endocrine system works.
Yeah, I was thinking that usually there's a trigger for disease, for a reaction, because I don't believe that anything that is, for example, genetic, or it's there's no predefined or
disposition.
Yeah, it has to have like a trigger or something. So the trauma can create the fields to be prone to this disease, this inflammatory. But then what causes it?
Yeah, it's like all those years of silent suffering are preparing the field for disease to later install. And what you're saying is that there's a trigger that in adult life will do the rest of the work. Like you are ongoingly preparing for the disease, and then you get the final cut. You get the final hit, and there's the onset of disease.
Yeah, or is that the trigger itself?
Well,
is that the childhood trauma? Is it the trigger for the inflammatory, or is it the creating of the condition for it to be triggered.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, because if you are in a way contaminated by a dysfunctional pattern all those years, like self-sabotage is happening in different ways, and these people who had trauma are the ones who are more prone to procrastination and to have negative self-talk and to quit things that might be good for them, or to disengage from relationships that might be actually very good for them or successful. And self-sabotage perpetuates itself to the point where the person might be neglecting or might be creating more and more stress, which will ultimately create a precipitating event. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, some events are uncontrollable, like the death of someone. I believe our own self-sabotage cannot create the death of someone external, or accidents, or they can create breakups in relationships, that they can create diagnoses, but I don't believe they can create diagnoses in other people. I don't know, many energetic processes might be happening, but at least I'm not aware that they can go so far that they influence so much other people's health. But what I know is that many studies showed that 80% of people who developed autoimmune disease had a major stress before, like immediately before.
Before?
Yes, like imagine the person loses a child. This is horrible. Loses a child, and 1 month after, that is the onset of the autoimmune disease. So it's like I see two triggers here. One in the childhood that prepares the field, the body starts in a way degenerating. And then there's a final hit. The person is filling the cup, and then one major drop of water makes it overflow, and you have your diagnosis.
Yeah, I was seeing that as well as you were explaining. I was already realizing that, and that is very interesting.
Yeah. And by no means I want to explain and explore this in ways that make people feel guilty. Gabor Mate himself, he faced this when he was writing the first articles that led to the release of When the Body Says No. He was explaining that we are responsible for our own process of becoming ill, but in a way that makes us aware of how our emotional management influences our health. And he had backlash from people like, the last thing I need now is to think that I'm guilty of my own cancer or that I'm guilty of my own diagnosis. And I understand their perspective. They are going through major distress and loss. They feel betrayed by their own bodies. But the intention here, and I subscribe to his words, is to help people expanding their awareness that how we digest what happens to us will ultimately influence the state of our health and bodies. So if we carry on not having any coping skills or positive coping skills, if we carry on not learning tools to help us deal with stress, if we don't learn how to breathe, how to eat, how to rest, how to recognize the signs of the body when it's overwhelmed, we are self-sabotaging.
Yes.
And the body will self-sabotage itself through the immune system.
Yeah. And I was thinking that maybe we should not only be able to recognize the signs on ourselves, but also recognize the stimulus from the outside.
How so?
Because if we understand the stimulus from the outside, they will not affect us that much.
Like before you are reacting to it, is that what you mean?
It's so I'm going to give you two examples to try to explain this other thing. It's if you know about neuromarketing, you will see it coming, and you will understand You understand it, that you are being manipulated and how you are being manipulated. And for example, if you know about manipulation, about gaslighting, for example,
Yeah.
and if you meet a manipulator, you will recognize the strategies, and you will not fall for them.
That's so important. Thanks for saying that.
So my point was, maybe if we understand the outside, we will not react in a blind way. We will understand what is happening, and we will not let it affect us in the same way.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah, I work with a lot of people who are yet in process. So they start recognizing that there are external events that generate internal reactions. And even when they are aware, they still realize they are reacting. It's like the nervous system is yet in process of becoming regulated, and it takes some time. But what you are saying is of major importance. And it's important to realize what's happening within, so you can find the appropriate strategies to accommodate it and transform it. But what comes from the outside is also very important, because we don't live isolated. We are not islands. We live in a world that is, bombarding us with everything. Information, with ads, with people, and very different types of people. And our energy is not always up. Sometimes we are, struggling, and that's when we are most vulnerable. And so it's really important to recognize if we are being bullied or manipulated or gaslighted or tricked into some situation that we will have trouble to get out, and to act immediately in a way that is helpful, will mitigate the effects it will have in our nervous and immune systems later. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's it. It's but I'm not going to say that it's easy, or that it will work all the time for every situation. That would be impossible.
Yeah.
Because as you said, we are being constantly bombarded with a lot of different types of information all the time from everywhere, and we are not always with our energy on 100%. So
yeah. And I see one very dangerous particular type of self-sabotage, which is, okay, but I should be able to handle this. And people keep going on, and they are pushing their limits, They think, okay, this is bad news, but that's life. I have to carry on. I should be able to support, to handle this. Otherwise, it means I'm weak. And the fact that they don't want to recognize that they are even temporarily weak, because it's no reason for shame, I'm weak sometimes. Everyone is weak sometimes. Or if I'm weak, not just sometimes, but always, it means I have many areas of improvement. Being weak might seem like a negative label, but it can be seen as neutral, as I lack a skill to thrive in this or that situation. So, and we can replace the word weak by something else. I might be triggering some people by using this word, but feel free to replace it any way it fits you. It's about
tired, for example.
Yeah. Tired or overwhelmed, yeah, or lacking assertiveness, many things. And
unrested.
The important thing here is to go in a way that promotes that development, that resilience. And I believe this for many constructs, but I believe resilience is also a psychosomatic construct. Resilience is both mental and somatic. A resilient person will have a different posture, a different body tonus, will behave and pose themselves in a different way, like boundaries. Many people learn how to say no, but when you say no in a convincing way, you say no with a different body posture, with a different eye gaze, with a different facial expression. Do you know what I mean? If you say no in a way that shows people that you are not owning your no, the person will think like, okay, if I insist enough times, this is going to become a yes. So the no, the boundary, is also somatic, is also in the body, is physical, is in the fascia, is in the muscle, is in everything, is in the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you look the other person in the eyes. And I believe this for boundaries, for resilience, for self-sabotage, for everything. Maybe not everything. Everything is a very dangerous word. But yeah.
Okay. When you were saying resilience, I was thinking about stoicism. But then I was not so sure when you were explaining the rest of it.
Stoicism is very beautiful. And I believe stoicism can sometimes too be a form of self-sabotage.
How so?
You can try to be stoic, but you might not have developed enough qualities to endure your stoicity.
Okay.
Imagine there's a breakup and the person is okay, but I'm going through this with dignity. I will not crawl. I will not stop working. I will not cry. I will see this as temporary. So I will adjust to this new situation and block a lot of emotional reactions and not develop things they should develop. And it's too early to reach that level of stoicity. I don't know if I'm saying the word correctly, but this is just an example. You know, what we want to be needs to be practiced. Some of us are more naturally stoic, but most of us are not. In this era, at least, we are not created in a way, you know, in an era of busy parents and plastic food and all this information coming to us all the time. We are not built from scratch to be stoic. So many of us have to fight for it and develop it. So many of us are sometimes wanting to be stoic too soon, and it will be a part of the self-sabotage pattern.
Yeah, you know, you can be stoic in front of the person that is causing you harm, but then when you are alone, you don't have to be. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Because as if I try to be stoic all the time after like a breakup, for example, what I am doing is I'm creating dissociation. And I'm like imploding inside without noticing, because I'm denying myself the grief.
And you much watch this all the time in your myofascial releases in your clients. People who are building up, either consciously or unconsciously, either whether if they dissociated from it or if they realized they were not expressing it, then when the release happens, it's a flood of emotions, and people, they don't just cry, you know, they're sobbing.
Yeah.
It's important what you said, like if you feel you have to be stoic in front of the other person, at least you create a moment for yourself afterwards when you are alone, or when you feel safe with someone else or safe with yourself alone, to release the emotion, to be as you are, whether it feels good or bad. You create that space to let things be what they are. And there's something important that is being increasingly discussed among therapists, which is when you notice you are not well, you should not straight away try to extinguish that fire. You know, if you realize you are sad, it's important to accommodate the sadness, feel how it feels like, what parts of the body are affected, what created that sadness, how is the dynamics of that particular sadness. Because if we are like, okay, I'm going to distract myself because, being sad is pointless, I need to be happy or I need to have positive thoughts. And we therapists, we tell people to have positive affirmations, to have breathing strategies to transform their nervous system state and their consciousness state. But it's important to accommodate the emotion first before we move to another state. I know emotions are temporary, but they are messengers, so they need to be listened to. And when we jump to a strategy, it feels that we are somehow flawed and we need to very quickly fix ourselves. So if we allow ourselves like at least 5 minutes to appreciate that sadness, it doesn't feel good, but it doesn't create the urgency to move forward. So the nervous system will react in a different way. Like it will learn to process it slowly. Like I don't have to erase this part of myself so quickly. This is a part of me right now. It's trying to tell me something. I need to listen carefully to it and transform things later. With time, with planning.
Okay. Now I was thinking that, that is a strategy for right now. What about the strategies for the childhood trauma?
Ooh, yeah. Are you going to say something about it, or is?
No, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer.
Therapists are divided, and it's good that they are divided because it offers a range of interventions, and clients can choose whatever it resonates more with them. So some therapists work within the feeling as it was in the past. Others work with what's in the present. So how is this pattern manifesting in the present? So we work with the present moment. If you had an issue with authorities, probably your parents, when you were 4 years old, now you are having issues with your boss or with a partner or with, other authority figures. So we work with that. We try to decode what's happening, both in the emotional field, both in the body, in the nervous system, and try to see what core beliefs are there. What am I doing to deal with that situation? Sometimes anxiety comes from how we not rest to properly face the situation. And when I say rest, I say take time to have fun, sleep properly, eat properly, drink enough water, breathe calmly. So if the person is so worried, they cannot slowly process how to face something and how to prepare their bodies to face something. Anxiety is a very natural reaction. So that anxiety, even though it's triggered by an authority figure, it might be rooted in many other things. And when you resolve that many other things, you peel a lot of layers, and deep down you realize what's happening is the person is feeling invalidated by the eye look or by the sentences of that authority figure. And something even deeper is what in that person, what features or traits makes you feel that he or she is an authority. Why do you give them authority? So there are many ways of working with childhood trauma. Other therapists, they go all the way back to the inner child. They connect the person to the memories, to the visual memories, the smells, the songs that were present by the time of the trauma. They lead to the embodiment of the trauma itself to fully understand it. And then they create kind of a healing loop in which your present self goes back and helps the child in a way that would prevent or decrease the impact of trauma. And this creates a sense of safety within the nervous system. And but this is my opinion, I still believe that skills need to be developed and other core beliefs must be transformed in order for in the present, there is balance and there is not so much reactivity within the nervous system, but it's another form. Then you have hypnosis. Hypnotherapists, they go all the way back and they use cues to create safety around that memory so it doesn't have as much impact as when it is triggered in the present. There are so many ways of working. I like to work in the present, and I like to soothe the body and the nervous system the much I can, so I can be as much sober, me and the client, sober, to see what's really going on in the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, personally, I also don't like or trust hypnosis because of the concept that memory, it's not a read-only file, but it's a edited file. So you can edit your memories.
Yeah.
So if the hypnotherapist, it's not cautious, he can plant seeds of memories that never happened. And so that is my why I don't really like hypnotherapy so much.
Yeah.
So I have another question regarding what you were saying, because how do we deprogram core beliefs?
Well, first you need to find them.
Yeah.
And find how they are exactly. And this ties to what you were saying before, because I wanted to say something about what you said before, like memory is not a read-only file. It keeps being edited. And that's why if a hypnotherapist is working solely in the past and helping the person soothe the reaction to a certain memory, might not solve what is happening in the present. And I'm going to explain. Imagine someone was abused by their mother. And so you will work in a way to create safety around that time of your life and create cues of self-confidence and inner power and comfort to deal with that particular situation. But this person that was abused by their own mother surely developed other things across childhood and adolescence. Imagine they developed low self-esteem, which made them go through very unsuccessful relationships with peers, lack of love from romantic partners. They didn't have the confidence in their first jobs, so they feel like complete failures. And the fact that you are going to work in the relationship with the mother in the childhood will give some confidence, will give some inner power and some comfort, but it will not give you the skills that you need for your present situation in work, with partners, with society. Many things happened, many micro traumas happened as the continuity of that first domino piece that threw all the other pieces. So this is why, and tying both things that you were saying, this is why I believe it's important. But, the work some hypnotherapists do is very powerful. They create very strong cues of inner safety and inner power that will help the person face things in the present. And I'm not trained in hypnotherapy, so I hope I'm not saying anything that is against what hypnotherapists do or believe. And I apologize if I say something that is considered wrong. But my main objective is to work with as many skills as the person can possibly develop in the present. Both skills for nervous system regulation and for interpersonal relationships. And imagine this person never really learned how to talk to someone confidently. They might have to do a course on assertive communication or public speaking or anything, because now, yes, they have some more confidence, but they lack the skills. They never experience in the first place what it feels like to have a successful relationship, how to be a leader, or many things. And something you said the other day in the podcast that we were recording in Portuguese about the psoas muscle and the emotional releases and the catharsis, you said that we were discussing how the emotional release will not do all the work. The person will feel relieved, but still needs to work to break some patterns and to develop themselves further in order to fully resolve the situation. But you said something like the release will give the person will liberate them from weight and will give them a sense of being more energized, which in itself will be a boost into resolving the pattern. And so I believe the same thing for what inner child work or hypnotherapy work might do. It will boost the person, and the person with this boost might do a lot of magic, might start experimenting in situations, might start, challenging themselves more in the way they speak to others, looking people in the eye, being more assertive, being more daring to date potential romantic partners. And this might trigger the solution. Yes, I'm not going to say no to that. It's very important. And this can happen from a myofascial release from an ayahuasca journey or mushrooms or breath work or from hypnotherapy. I just don't want to romanticize the release or the quick work, because in my experience, and this might be just limited to my experience, people need to process things for a longer while, develop other skills in the long term. This is how personally and professionally deal with childhood trauma. It's unpacking a lot of things all the way until the present and see what's a bigger priority and act in a way to give the person agency. It's no magic trick for me.
Okay. Very interesting. The chain of dominoes makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense because if you have a child-like understanding of something that happened when you were a child, and I say a childlike understanding because you might not see it in the right way. You'll see it how a child would understand it.
Yeah.
Then you will build other beliefs on top of that. And actually it's a chain of dominoes because it's going to grow. It's going to be built on maybe a core belief or something that it's not actually the reality. It's not actually true.
Yeah.
And when we have a more broader understanding of the situation, we can realize that it was nothing like as we thought before, and we make peace with that, with our adult mind. But I think that we should also make peace with it, with our childlike mind. And sometimes we forget that. We forget about that. We can rationalize, or we can think that, it's that situation that happened, it was not a big deal. So, yeah. And we believe that now, but the child within us felt a certain pain, and the pain is still here, and we are kind of, if we think the way that I was describing, we might just be creating a shell around that pain and not solving the pain itself.
Yeah, and the pain is growing.
Yeah.
And it's growing in the body as well. What you're describing is that state, that childish state, is carried on until adulthood. So in terms of hormones and nervous system reactions and body contraction, muscle contraction, fascia contraction, is also being carried on. So inflammation is growing. malabsorption of nutrients in the gut is continuing. Brain inflammation is increasing. Fascia tension is increasing. Breathing patterns are becoming worse and worse. And so this child finds themselves 3 decades later or 4 having less energy and a body that feels very, very heavy and worse. On top of that, there are all the unresolved situations that happen because of that first domino piece. And so this child is seeing the world through a much more negative lens and feels overwhelmed. And so this first event was a catalyst, but all the further events are creating layers of weight. So when you reach adulthood, you will think that you were severely abused by your mother when she was just not available. And it's about all these other layers that happened. And sometimes, and I don't want to discredit the impact that the first domino piece has, it starts somewhere for all of us. We are all children that didn't grow perfectly, all of us. None of us is a perfect adult, because if you were, nobody would react in the ways that most of us react. That person would be taking care of everyone else very assertively, very patiently, would be very healthy, with a very, very appealing glow in their skin and aura and in the eyes. You don't see many people like that, at least I don't. Maybe you see them temporarily after something nice happened, but in the long term, going to traffic, people either are, aggressive or dissociated. No one is there like, yeah, I'm alive, so it feels so good. I don't mind being in traffic for 2 hours. I'm so grateful for having a body and being in the car. I try this. I cannot do it. I am also a child that didn't grow perfectly. But sometimes the way I listen therapists talking, especially in Reels, in Instagram, it's like the abuse you suffered from a parent is encapsulated in a part of the fascia, and nothing happened after that was bad for you. So when you touch that area with a certain type of touch and you hold space, the person will release that abuse and then will be free from that abuse. Nothing else needs to happen. And it's such a romantic perspective. Like, okay, I was neglected by my grandmother, and ever since then, I feel like I don't deserve love. And so my psoas muscle is shortened. So when you touch my psoas in a way that releases it, okay, now I'm cured. No, I don't see it that way. It's not encapsulated in a body area, and it's just not one experience. It's a piling up of experiences, and your psoas muscle is connected to the rest of the fascia, which is connected to every muscle and organ in the body. The tension is condensated there, yes, but it makes itself resonate through all the body. So all the body is responding to that event. And if you touch other parts of the body, other reactions will come that are related to that and related to all the other stories, related or unrelated, that happens. So yes, I like the idea of emotional release. It happens, but it's just not abuse, and trauma is not just encapsulated there waiting to be touched and released and seen. The rabbit hole goes much deeper than that.
Yeah, it's a path. It's a way. It's not a destination.
Yeah.
I also think so.
Yeah.
It's we are in constantly healing.
Yeah, I hear so many things, like from people who have chronic pain, but when they are on vacation, they don't. Women who have very harsh menstrual pain, but when they are in holiday, they don't feel it at all. People who feel really, really well when they are, kind of starting a new relationship or a new job, and then after a year, when things fall apart or just become regular again, normal, symptoms come back or sadness comes back. People who after one ayahuasca ceremony or breathwork ceremony, whatever, feel like their life changed, And I believe they might feel like that in some ways. It changed. Every day our lives change. But after a while, they build the same resentment. They build the same tension. Yeah, many things are happening. It's a story with many chapters, many words. It needs to be read carefully, and you need to keep writing the pages. Otherwise, the pages write themselves, and the outcome is not a happy ending.
Yeah. I heard a lot of stories of therapies, like, for example, in someone that did a course on myofascia, and then when we are doing the course, we are practicing on each other. And then someone that after the course just broke up with his partner.
Mm-hmm.
So because there was something happening during the course on the releasing of the tension on the fascia. And in those moments, there's a big change, and there was a big change of pattern. If the person was not well with the partner, breaking up with the partner can be like a solution
mm-hmm.
for that for that tension that is being created. But all of the other examples that you were saying, it's like when they are on holidays, they don't feel pain. It's like if you take out the stress, then they don't have the disease.
Exactly.
It's like that. But it will be impossible for the person to be in holidays forever. And,
exactly.
Some people change their jobs. I heard stories of that as well. People that
Mm-hmm.
did this example was from a Watsu course that I did.
Uh-huh.
Someone after the course, they just quit their jobs, and because they realized that that was harming them. But there are certain things that we cannot change.
Yeah.
So we can feel like relief for a while, but then we need to change the way that we see the situation. If not changing the situation completely, changing something on the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. When someone tells me, either a client or a friend or just someone tells me they want to quit their jobs, I always encourage them to have a plan B. Either start a sidekick, which takes a lot of time. So they might want to develop strategies to deal with stress for a few months or even a year or two until they develop their sidekick. Or just, apply for other jobs so you can have something if you leave the current job. Otherwise, the stress of not being financially independent might be overwhelming, might be the catalyst for your autoimmune disease, And the person that broke up with the partner still needs to work in their own patterns that lead to the unsuccess of the relationship.
Yeah. I thought about that when I explained it, because there's a lot of people that they break up with someone, but then I will not say attract, but I say that they connect with other people that are the same or worse.
Yeah. And they are the same still.
Yeah. Because if they are the same, the other person is going to be the same as well.
Yeah. You might remove the weight, but you don't know how to behave in a different way to not have that weight later on again. So when I'm in a relationship with someone, both of us are responsible for the success and the health of the relationship. If I find that the person is unhealthy and is unable to work in their own things, what I can do is work in my things, and if it's overwhelming for me, I can leave. But always leaving, knowing that I'm working with my own things to make things better for myself and for any future partners if I want to have them. And earlier in the episode, we spoke about the two triggers, the childhood trigger and the major stress trigger. In between this, one thing that might happen is chronic stress. So you were saying that some things we cannot change, and the fact that life is stressful is one of them. Life is stressful. Stress can be used for our development or for our impairment. If it's overwhelming compared to our resources, stress is totally overwhelming. It's too much, too soon, and it creates breaking inside of us. Something breaks. So what we can do, we cannot do anything about the childhood trauma. It's too late for that. We can do something about the chronic stress and try to develop enough qualities and skills and strategies to prevent the impact of acute stresses. That's what we can do. So when we work on our inner narratives and core beliefs and the way we eat and sleep and breathe, then we are walking towards prevention and healing.
Well, we can still work on our childhood trauma.
Yeah, we can. But not in the past. That's too late for that. We cannot have a time machine and time travel to remove that.
Not remove, but work on it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's beautiful to do that.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to twist things and say that if you are working in this way to reduce the impact of chronic stress, to solve what came for your childhood trauma, to prevent or mitigate the impacts from acute stress, then yes, feel free to go to a breathwork ceremony. If you have balance enough to go to a psychedelic journey, go to a psychedelic journey. If it doesn't harm you in a way, if it's done within safety and the right dosage, the right set and setting, and the facilitator is trained and empathetic and can create a safe space for you, go for the myofascial release with a trained professional. Go do it. It's a boost. If you are already doing the work, no problem in creating even more conditions for flourishing. This is what I believe. I will do it myself. Sometimes I have myofascial releases with you. Sometimes I have breath work, and it's great. It's just great.
Yeah, we all need healing.
As a final note, I would like to say that autoimmune disease or inflammatory disease is not just about what's going on in the mind. It's multifactorial. It's about lifestyle. It's about many, many things. Some genes play a role, even if I don't believe in pure genetics. It's epigenetics, and it's being triggered by the environment. You know, there are medical treatments that sometimes they need to be done by, you know, endocrinologists or any other medical specialties. So I'm in a way discouraging people from engaging in as best medical care they can. And I'm also not trying to overwhelm people into believing that because they have this or that trait of personality, they should be worried about an autoimmune disease. You know, at the most, I want to encourage people to connect with what's going on inside of them, within, understand it, and grow in a way to mitigate what it might do to their health. And yeah, I just want to promote consciousness and help people get involved with whatever means they can to become healthy and balanced. If that involves seeking, you know, regular medicine, conventional medicine, yeah, why not? Please do it.
Yeah, there's some acute inflammatory disease on the joints that can be caused by sexual transmitted disease.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of different causes for inflammation, and we are not generalizing and saying that every disease is caused by the mind.
Yeah,
we are just giving an example and a trigger and calling out for people to know that sometimes the treatment is not only chemical, and sometimes we also should have some psychological treatment as well.
Definitely.
In combination.
Wise words. Wise words. Yeah. Well, this was a very powerful and meaningful reflection for me. I'm satisfied. I think I shared everything I had to share. Do you want anything else in this discussion?
Well, I can say that in sabotage, when I was, I worked in a clinic that treated gynecology and andrology problems with Chinese medicine. It was with my friend and teacher Paula Madeira, and I learned there that there's this condition where the woman creates antibodies to the husband's sperm.
Wow.
So it creates antibodies to that particular person only.
How toxic is that person to the woman's body, you know? And when I say body, is, you know, the whole body, including the brain and the nervous system and the personality. That whole entity is perceiving the other one as toxic. So the immune system is developing antibodies against their fluids.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very interesting to learn that.
When I'm saying toxic, it's not always about the partner. The person might be unable to receive love because of some trauma. So I'm not saying that the guy in that case is an asshole or is violent or abusing her. Maybe he's just 5 stars guy, but she went through something, and when it's time to commit into a serious relationship, she feels threatened. So when I say toxic, I don't mean it's about the partner. It must be about us as well. It triggers something inside of us. We, as I said, we are children that didn't grow properly, so we have our sensitive spots, and so our nervous systems and immune systems might react to it. This is a very powerful example.
Yeah, it was very good that you pointed out the importance of it's not the problem of one person. It's both.
Yeah. Yeah. You kept that for the end. Yeah. Well done. Very powerful. Yeah. Yeah. Same way when you know someone for years, but after a certain moment, you cannot tolerate that person's voice anymore. You got fed up, or you changed in a way that that person doesn't fit anymore. And this might not lead to an immune reaction, but it leads to internal reactions, of inner discomfort, inner stress, and hormonal release. That will for sure change the immune system, not particularly necessarily against the person's cells or anything. But yeah, this is far too complex and fascinating. And I'm glad we addressed it this way.
Nice.
Well, I encourage anyone who have questions to get in touch with us, or if there's something you didn't understand, just reach out, connect to our Instagram pages, or the contacts that we have in our description.
Thank you.
Thanks for anyone who stayed up until this point. We are very grateful. It's a pleasure to share these messages. So, see you soon. Stay plugged.
See you.